Hi, I'm James, and today I'm looking at this, which is the Lenovo IdeaPad S340-14IWL. This is a laptop which I've had quite a few customers ask me about, as here in the UK, where we currently have restricted movement and the schools closed down due to the coronavirus issues, I've had a number of people asking for recommendations on laptops, and this currently is one of the cheaper, I would say, reasonable laptops available from Curry's PC World. I paid £320 for this. I think at the time of recording it is currently £350. So this is a 14-inch screen laptop, and we have the Intel Pentium Gold 5405U processor, which is a Whiskey Lake codename chip running at 2.3 GHz. It is dual core with hyperthreading, so you can more or less think of it as equivalent to sort of a 7th generation Core i3, just with a little bit less cache, but built on the same 14nm process. Obviously that is with the Intel UHD 610 graphics rather than 620, so a little bit slower on graphics, but similar processor performance. And so this particular model at this price point comes with 4 GB of RAM, which is a little lower than I'd hope at this price point, but prices have been inflated due to supply issues, and a 128 GB SSD. Now if we just go into some of the tools that we have installed on here, so we can see that the processor is, as we say, Intel Pentium Whiskey Lake chip, 2.3 GHz. There is no turbo mode on this, so 2.3 GHz is the max frequency the processor should run at. And what we should see here as well, unfortunately we don't get much memory information from the tool, but I know that this has 4 GB soldered to the main board with an additional DIMM slot, which as standard is unoccupied. And using the Crystal Disk Mark tool, so it is a NVMe SSD in this machine, but don't be expecting very high levels of performance from it. Just running the short sequential test in Crystal Disk Mark here, and we should see sort of around 470 megabytes a second, or 800 megabytes a second. So yes, it is faster than a SATA drive. The lower sequential test when I ran it before came around 470. And looking at the writes, so this isn't a high performance NVMe drive, but being 128 GB we wouldn't expect that, and obviously a fairly low price point system. The actual body of the machine, it's reasonably well built. It's obviously a plastic body, and it is finished in what Lenovo call Abyss Blue. But I have to say it feels, quite nice to hold. Everything feels fairly solid on it. It's certainly not a very cheap feeling laptop. You could make the argument that obviously the specs for it for the price aren't particularly high either, but unfortunately that is just how pricing is at the moment. The screen on it, as I mentioned, is a 14-inch diagonal, and it is 1080p. It is a TN type panel, so obviously not an IPS display. Sort of twisting it round, there is a little bit of colour shift at angles, but for a TN panel it's certainly not the worst I've seen. The version of Windows which ships on it out the box is Windows 10 Home in S mode. On this machine I have gone through and just converted that to full Windows 10 Home. I have another video on the channel which shows how to do that. Very simple and no additional cost. Obviously for some people running it in S mode does have some benefits so long as you're happy sourcing all your software through the Windows Store. I wanted to use CPU-Z and Crystal Disk Mark on here, so I had to unlock that feature, but literally takes a few minutes to do so. Other things with the screen, we have sort of 220 nits brightness. This is currently full brightness on it, and we can drop that down. Interestingly, if you go to the minimum, it will actually turn the backlight off completely. So if for any reason you wanted to, if you're running a second monitor and still wanted to keep this one active, you could just turn the brightness off on it. And obviously here we have the scaling, it's running on default because it's a 1080p panel, it's scaling things up slightly. Looking around the laptop, things are fairly standard, so we have our power, an HDMI out, a USB-C port, which is quite nice to see at this price point, and headphone socket. And turning around, if we can see on the other side, we have a pair of USB 3.1 A-type ports and a SD card reader. Now, I will be taking a look at upgradability in a separate video. We're going to open this up and look at how we could change that SSD and increase the amount of memory. But I would say if you're looking for a reasonably compact laptop at the moment, particularly good for children if they are working with, say, Office 365 and Teams, as a lot of that I have seen have been with their schools, then it's a nice size, nice weight. It's not a heavy machine. Build quality is reasonably good, so it's not excessive. It doesn't feel like a flimsy machine. There's not too much sort of flex in it when you hold it on a single corner, and it should be a fairly nice machine to use. In terms of preloaded software, you have sort of the usual bits with Lenovo, Vantage. One thing I did notice when I took it out of S mode, it immediately offered me McAfee, which I did not want. But there isn't a huge amount of sort of bloatware installed out of the box. Battery life on it, I haven't run this extensively. It looks like it should give a good few hours. I've had this running on my desk off charge for a couple hours this morning, or hour and a half maybe, and we're currently showing 80%. Obviously that hasn't been heavy usage. Your mileage will vary depending on what you are doing with the machine, but I would hope for 5 or 6 hours of use, but again depending how you're using the machine. If you've got any questions, do feel free to let me know in the comments below. Give this video a like if you found this quick run through helpful, and do check out my other video if you're looking at how you can upgrade this system with more memory or a larger SSD. Thanks for watching.